Good to be back.
Let's head into the Zoom room where you got to scoot over a little bit, Bree, because Administration Director Ed Birn is coming in. Guys, if Sabrina's background looks a little bit familiar, for those of you who've followed along on the show, she's in the quarantine hotel, La Dusitani, just returned from a trip stateside, right into the 6 days in the hole. But
it's not a bad hole.
Yeah, I know. We started the show with a beautiful view, and that's going to be kind of our go-to, Bree, is anytime it gets boring on here, we're just going to make you walk out on the balcony.
Okay, not a problem.
Let's get Administration Director Ed Birn on. Good morning, Mr. Birn.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Sabrina.
Good
Sabrina,
morning.
I have to see that you've made the bed.
Yes. What I do.
Both of them. Yeah. Okay.
I should alternate.
Mr. Birn, let's just get right into it here, and maybe we could get an update on the rental assistance.
Yes, certainly. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
As we announced with a press release earlier in the week, we've started the phase 2. So which amounts to us asking for another round of applications. In the first round, we got about 2,600 applications, and we're working our way through that. But we are aware that some people who appear to be eligible didn't apply. So we've invited them to start the second round of applications. And of course, you know, the funding we have allows us to continue to do this into the future, so long as people qualify under the criteria to get these rental and utility payments.
What was that? Do you have any idea some of the average payouts, Ed?
You know, to that they vary considerably. If I had to guess at an average, it would be somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000 for rental, and utilities, of course, vary too. But it's of the order of, like, again, about $200 to $400 for utilities.
And so for the rental assistance, that goes directly to the landlord, right?
Yes, it does.
What about the utilities?
As does the utility payments.
Yeah, the utility payments go direct to the utilities.
2,600, though, I kind of would have anticipated there would have been more people.
Yes,
right?
I would actually have too. And that's, of course, one of the reasons for reopening the applications again. It actually was quite surprising that so few people applied, when you imagine that the majority of people on the island rent their accommodation rather than own their accommodation. I guess the lesson is, you know, we put out a press release. We probably need to, as we get through this new phase, we probably need to reach out more, and we'll continue to do that, and we'll perhaps have a more frequent press release type update to make sure that everybody understands that this program is open. You know, but the landlords themselves, you know, are also able to register, and so it's not just the responsibility of the tenants. The landlords obviously get the money, so they have an interest in applying. I think that the biggest issue we've really come across is a lot of these arrangements are not formal arrangements. A lot of these landlord-tenant arrangements are informal arrangements, but we're trying to have to match that with federal standards, and that's proven to be a little bit problematic. And we're allowing the parties to go back and formalize the arrangement so that they can qualify. But of course, all that takes time and effort, but we'll obviously want to put all that effort, whatever effort is needed, into it to get these payments.
Have you seen any, I guess, cases where people were intentionally trying to fraud the system or the program?
Yeah, that's kind of hard to judge. I mean, we have had a fair number. I think it was it's like about 350 that were ineligible. I don't really want to take a view as to whether it's because they misunderstood the criteria or if they were deliberately trying to game the system. We don't have access. The unemployment program was able to make a clearer determination because it was a continuing payment, and they had access to other information. We don't have that. We're just trying to match the information that we have. But obviously, all applicants have to provide documentary proof, and that will weed out those. But it's not like the federal unemployment program that has specific penalties. We're just going to process them or not process them as necessary.
So having said that, there have been no instances in which the Department of Administration felt compelled to submit anything over to the Attorney General's office, or
no, not so far. No. I mean, we're only 2 months into this program, but not so far.
Right. Okay.
Ed, when you talk about a lot of these tenants and renters didn't have formal agreements, and you're telling them to get something, what is it, in writing? Or are you looking at some people who say, yeah, I stay here and this is how much I pay, but they don't have an official like lease type document?
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes it's a family relationship. Sometimes it's an extended family relationship. Sometimes, we like to do business here with a shake of the hand, but unfortunately, federal regulations don't really allow for that in this particular process. So I don't think it's I think it's an appropriate thing to do, not to disqualify people, but to allow them to formalize whatever needs to be formalized, if at all possible. Of course, it does require both parties to understand what's being formalized, and we actually have been kind of counseling people on that.
Interesting. So have you had any instances where, do you need a business license to be a landlord, and has that presented itself as a problem at all?
Yes, and that is a problem, but not. I mean, it is a problem, and there are some that don't. And again, we've allowed them to go and correct that. But it's not a really huge problem. Most landlords do have business licenses because they have to send in tax returns and whatever other regulations are required by DRT. So most of them do. There are some that don't. And of course, where you get to these informal relationships, it's a kind of judgment call as to whether a business license is inappropriate in that situation.
Right.
Well, I think I remember when you came on the beginning and the launch of the program, you were mentioning how there were situations where family members were renting out rooms, right, in the house.
Yes.
Is that kind of what you're talking about?
That's partly it, but it's not just rooms, Sabrina, but it could be attached houses or some other situation. But rooms certainly are a common occurrence.
Wow.
How do they?
So then, can we just kind of go over what's the criteria again, just to remind people what they need to know as you enter into phase 2 and what they need to have when they apply?
Yes, I can. The first thing is, someone needs you. The first thing is the actual income brackets have changed, and those were in the press release because they and that will actually allow a few more people to qualify. But we need to have, from the tenant, we need to have their income their income situation. They have to demonstrate that they have had their income affected by the COVID pandemic, and in most cases that they qualified for unemployment. Not in all cases, but for most cases. From the landlord, like we were just discussing, we want to make sure that they do have documentation that they are bona fide landlords, and that the tenant, in fact, does owe that amount that is being claimed. And we have to match those two things together. And that's what we spend most of our time doing.
And
I hope I
how do
something
people?
to
How is this going to affect like the filing taxes? So, have you received either of these assistance? How do you reconcile that when you file your taxes?
these payments from the tenant's point of view, there's no effect because the payments go to the tenants.
Right.
From the landlord's point of view, it has to be reported as income just as if they had received the rental payments. But there's no special treatment. It's just a rental payment to them.
Okay. Let's move on to this financial management system. I know you'd met with the vice speaker about it, but just to track the timeline again, guys, because this is something we've been keeping an eye on the show here, was I believe an executive order in December created a state of emergency for the purchase of a new financial management system for the government of Guam. And a few months down the road, that authority was taken away from the chief procurement officer. And I believe that DOA is now handling that procurement. And so could you kind of go into what dictated the emergency and also whether or not you still feel it's justified after this many months? Yes,
certainly. Well, it's an emergency because it's been left to, it was unattended for so many years. And the analogy I always like to tell people is it's like if you have a sickness and you wait until it gets to the point where you have to go to the emergency room. It could have been cured. Don't know why. It doesn't matter why, but it could have been cured during the intervening years. But now we're here with a system which doesn't meet modern requirements. We're all used to QuickBooks and similar types of accounting programs, and even tax computation programs like H&R Block, doing these things instantly. But we have a system that doesn't work that way, that doesn't have a graphic interface, that doesn't produce the information we require. And in particular, and this is what caused the emergency, the funds that we're getting from the federal government, right, it's certainly doubled and nearly tripled the number of transactions that are going through the system. And these are important transactions, these are large transactions, and we certainly don't want to, we don't want to lose control. So that's what made it an emergency, is that a system designed for, say, what amounts to 1 billion is now having to deal with 3 billion. And it's just not working. And it requires a lot of manual effort and intensive people intervention to make it work. We're not trying to get around any procurement regulations. And I made that quite clear to all who asked, including the Vice Speaker, that we are going through an RFQ process. The draft has been with the Attorney General. I believe we got the Attorney General's final comments yesterday, and we're updating it accordingly. And I saw an email, but I haven't gone through it yet, but I will go through it today. And with the intention of getting the RFQ out in very short order, in order that we can get this system in place. It's important to us because we want to do it at a time other than the end of the financial year, because there's so many other things going on at that time. So, and the financial year end is September. So that kind of, if you work back from that, that dictates the schedule that we're trying to work to.
Can you give us a status on the bid or whatever stage it's at right now, and how many responses?
We haven't got the RFQ out yet. As I say, it was just finalized by the Attorney General yesterday.
Okay.
So we're in the process of getting it out. So we don't have any bids yet. But I think there's been enough publicity for those who intend to bid to be able to prepare a bid. So I certainly would want to have the minimum amount of response days.
I'm not sure if you already went over this, but how much is the system going to cost?
We don't know yet because we haven't got the bids.
But you have a ballpark figure?
Not really, because it depends how many modules you add on. Right? I really want to wait until I get the bids to know whether there are three basic modules in the core financial system. There is the accounting system, there is the HR part that also connects with the payroll system, and there's a procurement part. And we haven't yet, until we get these responses from people, we haven't got any idea how much each of those modules is going to cost.
Right, but
set aside some funds in the expected amount that we're going to get from ARP funding, which is another thing that we're working on. And I think we put aside 8 million to do that. But I really don't know how much it's going to cost.
do you know how much the old system has cost? Maybe we can do a little comparison.
Well, the old system was purchased in 2010. So there's not a good guide at all. I mean, it's, I'm sorry, not 2010, 2001, 2001.
Yeah.
I was going to say 10 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, 30 years, it's 30 years almost that it started, and certainly over 20. It's not a really good guide. Anything 20 years ago, I think you might want to compare it with today's prices.
Yeah, but you know, when there was that report that the chief procurement officer had submitted to the legislature relative to listing of emergency
Yes.
purchases and sole source procurements, but there were a lot of purchases from data management, which that's the company that runs the current financial management system.
That's the company that sold us the existing financial management system. Yes.
Right. So I mean, we didn't have any insight into what those payments were for, but it was pretty significant, right? There was a large number of large payments. So what were those for?
Most of those payments are not for the financial management system, because we actually really haven't paid anything for this financial management system. A lot of them are for things that bolt onto it, such as the system at DRT, the system at public health that deals with the Medicaid and MIP payments. There are other such control systems throughout the government, and most of the payments are actually not related to the FMIS system. They're related to those other processes.
So would you categorize those as like system upgrades, or are they just like different components that add on to?
Most of them are kind of what I think are characterized as maintenance of the system, because like any system, I'm sure it has to be brought up to date. Yeah. But the way that is managed by each agency is each agency's decision. Right. But as far as DOA is concerned, we really haven't spent a whole lot of money on the system. And why would you when you're going to replace it?
Ed, so you're saying it's an emergency, right? But I mean, just outside looking in, why haven't we seen the signs of it? I mean, what would those signs be? Would we be seeing payless paydays, or would there just be, major malfunctions with financial numbers, or can you just translate to the lay people out here?
Yes, I mean, I think like I was saying earlier, the biggest symptom is dealing with these federal dollars. We have many more federal reports to compile and submit because of these the federal funds that we're getting. The biggest effect really is it's my job to make sure these things don't happen, right? That we don't have payless paydays and vendors do get paid. But there's a lot of strain on the people working at DOA who have to work long hours and work at things that, to get these basic processes working, whereas I really want them to work on higher level issues that we have to deal with. We're trying to complete the audit. There's a lot of pressure on us from the public auditor and others from the legislature to complete the audit. So all these strains and stresses are going on in here, but we obviously do whatever we can to make sure that outside things go as normal.
So did it hold up pretty good for the CARES Act though?
Well, the CARES Act it was 180 million, and no, it really didn't. We had to do some things in a different way, and frankly, we learned a lot by getting this CARES Act money. We're going to put those lessons into play when we get the ARP money. But no, it really didn't. The system, as I say, was designed for a much smaller government. And I don't think we're alone in this. I mean, a number of the other states have found themselves in the position, although they're dealing with really much bigger numbers, but their systems also left them struggling a bit. And I know at least 2 or 3 states have been doing what they can to upgrade their systems also.
Did you at any time try rebooting the system, Ed?
You mean just pull out the plug and see what happens?
Yeah, turn it off and on. That's what we do in here.
and you still stay on the air when you do that?
Everything's working fine.
Well, I'll think about it, Chris.
Yeah.
But if I do that, I'll be sure to blame you.
Right. Can we get an update on the overtime and COVID pay, the usual stuff?
Yeah, overtime we've done much better with, as I told you. I think we've still got a few that we are expecting to receive from the police department, but generally overtime is being reported timely, and I'm very pleased with all the agencies' response to that. And I'm sure the employees of those agencies are equally. The hazard pay, we're still behind some periods in some agencies. We're constantly requesting them to submit all that they have. But again, the part of this is a system issue. Is in order to get the hazard pay, we have a separate timesheet that has to be put into the system. There's no easy way of putting it into the system except punching it into the system, and that's done by the agencies, and they have to make sure that what they put in is the same as what they, the paperwork they submit to us. But we're always on that. We're always trying to make sure that we get those payments out. But I'm really happy that as far as overtime is concerned, I think it's almost a thing of the past.
Ed, I wanted to go back to just the financial management system and what you said about us getting all this federal money and the reporting requirements. So at this stage, if we were to be audited by the federal government, would we be able to satisfactorily supply all the information they need, given that we're using this system that you say is outdated?
As far as the CARES Act is concerned, Chris, we are required to do, through the Treasury portal, quarterly reporting. I'm really happy to say that Guam has always been on time with the quarterly reporting. And indeed, there have been 1 or 2 states more than 1 or 2 states actually, who certainly encountered more difficulty than we did in getting their information in. So far, we only had 1 comment from the Treasury Attorney General, which is that we put 1 payment in the wrong category, which we obviously fix the next time. It was just 1 payment in 1 category. But there's a difference between a financial management system and compliance with federal regulations, and we have to do both. But it's not always a clear path from one to the other. We're always telling agencies, in order to get the federal money, we have to comply with all the federal regulations, which includes the Treasury Inspector General, the OMB, single audit that we are trying to complete now, at least for 2020. It doesn't always make us terribly popular here at DOA, but we are, in order to satisfy the audit to which you referred to, we obviously make sure that the regulations are complied with.
I wanted to ask just real quick, because I know there is a hearing today relative to this COLA certificate from Attorney Mike Phillips. Did you have a comment on that, Mr. Birn?
No, it's a legal issue, and as you know, it's not wise to speak on legal issues when a legal process is proceeding. So we'll just let the legal process play out. Okay, well, let me ask you one last question here, because we only have about a minute. What can you tell us about the UK variant? Well, first of all, I don't have it, so I don't have any personal experience of it. I don't know a whole lot about it, just to be honest.
Take it back.
Because I'm here, and I'm glad I'm here, because we have much less infection rate here than in most places. It's just I understand viruses change in nature, and I think this one was first identified in the UK. I don't know which part of the UK that it was found in, but there are other variants out there. I guess all I can tell you is do whatever you can with whatever precautions you can, whichever hygiene precautions you can, not to get it.
Right on.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Mr. Birn, and happy belated birthday, right?
Yes, thank you. Yesterday.
Yeah. Enjoy your tea and crumpets.
Okay, enjoy your stay, Sabrina.
All right. Yeah, day. Okay, guys, we're going to take just a really quick break, and we're coming back on KUAM TV next. Good morning.
Banners posted.
We got your 6
at 6 a.m. with the link on Breeze